India's first advanced estimate of GDP for 25-26 released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation projects a sharp rise in real GDP growth to 7.4%. This is driven mainly by a rebound in manufacturing and resilient service despite external shocks such as 50% US tariffs on Indian goods. However, nominal GDP growth is projected to slow to 8%, a 5-year low, raising fiscal and budgetary implications ahead of the Union Budget 26-27. Key highlights of the first advanced estimate: real versus nominal GDP growth. Real GDP growth 25-26 7.4% up from 6.5% in 24-25. Nominal GDP growth 8% lowest in 5 years excluding pandemic year. Gap between real and nominal growth 60 basis point lowest since 2011 and 12. This indicates low inflationary pressure or weak price growth. Size of the Indian economy. Nominal GDP 25-26 357 lakh crore at an exchange rate of 89.89 rupee per dollar. GDP equals $3.97 trillion, just short of the $4 trillion economy milestone. Significance: India nearing $4 trillion economy despite global volatility. Sector-wise performance: supply side or GVA. Manufacturing growth rebound to 7% from 4.5% last year despite US tariff. Domestic demand and supply side resilience remain strong. Agriculture growth moderates to 3.1% from 4.6%. This reflects normalization after a strong previous year. Construction growth at 7%, down from 9.4%, still robust due to infrastructure push. Services strong expansion at 9.1% driven by new age services, GST rate cuts in September and robust service export. Expenditure side trends. Demand side: private final consumption expenditure growth at 7% in 25-26 and against 7.2% in 24-25. Gross fixed capital formation. Investment: it is expected to rise 7.8% up from 7.1% growth seen last year. Government consumption expenditure: it makes up less than a tenth of India's GDP and is expected to see its growth rate more than double to 5.2% this year from 2.3% in 24-25. This is led mainly by state government spending. Second half slowdown. The first advanced estimate implies that GDP growth in October-December 25 and January-March 26 will average 6.9%, sharply down from the 7.8% and 8.2% growth rates recorded in the first two quarters. The Reserve Bank of India, which raised its GDP growth forecast for the year by 50 bps last month to 7.3%, expects the economy to grow by 7% in October-December 2025 and 6.5% in January-March 2026. Implication for Union Budget 26-27. The first advanced estimate of GDP for the year is used by the Ministry of Finance for its budget calculation. The role of nominal GDP. Nominal GDP growth is a critical input for tax revenue projection, fiscal deficit targets, and debt to GDP ratio. Slower nominal growth may constrain fiscal space and affect revenue buoyancy. Example: Budget 25-26 assume 10.1% nominal GDP growth to fix the fiscal deficit at 4.4% of GDP. Actual nominal growth 8% fell short, but the absolute GDP target was met due to the revision. Major structural change. New GDP series. Shift in base year. This first advanced estimate will have a short shelf life because GDP data released February 27 onward will be as per a new series with a base year of 22-23 as against 2011-12 now. Updating the base year is key to a correct picture of the economy. Shift includes new data sources, improved methodology, and updated benchmarks. Importance: reflect structural transformation of the Indian economy. Caution by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Estimate will undergo frequent revision. Users must interpret data carefully. GDP revision timeline. The GDP growth figure for 25-26 will continue to undergo revisions after the second advanced estimate is published on February 27 with the final number available only in February 28. Challenges highlighted and way ahead. Slowing nominal GDP growth. This indicates fiscal management challenges, maintain fiscal prudence and lower nominal growth. Second half economic slowdown. Sustained manufacturing momentum through PLI and export diversification strengthen investment cycle via public capex and crowding in private investment. Agricultural growth moderation boost agricultural productivity to stabilize rural demand, external uncertainty, tariffs, global volatility, continuous structural reforms to support medium-term growth 6.5 to 7%. Frequent data revisions may affect policy consistency. Leverage data reforms for evidence-based policy making. Conclusion. The first advance estimate for 2025-26 underscores the resilience of the Indian economy with a robust real GDP growth of 7.4% despite global headwinds. However, the sharp deceleration in nominal GDP growth raises concerns for fiscal planning and revenue mobilization. As India transitions to a new GDP series with an updated base year, policymakers must balance growth support, fiscal discipline, and reform momentum to navigate uncertainties in 26-27 and beyond.